my whole collection of animal related motifs out for this video. Yes. I know I've been saying this every time, but this is the video where I'll restart my YouTube journey. I'm sure of it. This time, for sure. I've been missing YouTube so much, and then today our school decided to go online because of some lane issues, and that's pretty cool. And but the last time that they did this, my productivity went to interesting places, and I missed recording that time. I really wanted to, but then I didn't. So this time I ensured that I'm gonna be making some video or the other because it's just such a good creative outlet. And okay, I've just been missing YouTube a lot. Anyways, that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to kind of analyze some things that I've been thinking about. And one thing that's interesting, since right now I'm going to start online school in like 45 minutes, and with the rainy weather and stuff, or with the predicted rainy weather that I haven't really seen yet. My point being, back to my point, is that it's pretty cool how privileged we are to be able to access school and education despite the climate crisis. Now when I say the climate crisis, I mean climate change in general. It's because of rainy weather, right, that we have to adapt to online school every once in a while, and we have the resources to do so, so that's great. And what gave us these resources? Pretty sure the pandemic. We built this, like my school built this model of hybrid learning, I guess, during the pandemic, during a healthcare crisis, and that kind of built adaptation and resilience, I suppose. That enables us to catapult into the issues of a climate crisis. And of course the pandemic did set back a lot of improvement and progress, but in some ways I think it built a sense of, as I said, resilience collectively in humanity. And I think that's something interesting to think about for the future as we go forth. And another thing that I wanted to think about in this video was, sure, we discussed technology, and we've always been discussing technology as a solution for the climate crisis, but we tend to think less of what that technology means when it can't be accessed by all, and what this inaccessibility could mean for society as a whole. Because society is huge, and in order to survive the climate apocalypse, we'll have to ensure social equity first. And these are some of the things that I want to discuss. Also, how language has evolved during climate activism, like during the historical progression of our understanding of the climate crisis. Why is it that climate change transformed into a crisis? Why is it that denial, anxiety, grief are now being used to fuel climate action? And why is it that climate action turned into justice? And what is the concept of a climate apocalypse? Why is it there? And is it based on fact or fiction? So these are just some of the interesting things that I wanted to think about today. And also, I've been meaning to make this video for so long because I've had this idea for so long, but then I didn't have the motivation to do it. But then today I had the motivation to do it because A, online school, and B, because tomorrow is my it's a test. I have a test for ESS, which is Environmental Systems and Societies, a subject that I've taken. And while I can rant about the subject separately, it's an interesting subject. It just kind of gave me the vibe and mood that I needed for making this video, because we're studying sustainability. So yeah, and it just made sense to me. And I think this would probably be like a series on my channel, but I like when during a weekend or during a day that I'm particularly studying a particular subject, I'll pick up an issue or topic from that subject and do kind of social commentary on it, I guess. I have some brilliant plans for English and psychology, and visual arts, and all the subjects except for math. Basically, I have no thoughts regarding math. But yeah, and now I'm gonna get ready for school and also kind of structure this video up a little more and plan it out a bit more, because I feel like otherwise I'm just gonna be talking to the camera like this with no intention in mind. So yeah, see you guys once I've planned stuff a bit more. So I did a little bit of research and it's fascinating. And before I begin, I'm just a high school student. For those of you who don't know, I have no prior actual training or proper research experience. I just self-taught myself how to research, and I didn't really cite everything professionally. I just put the web links, which is not proper citation for in most cases, but yeah, I was too lazy. Anyways, moving on to the actual part. So I'm going to begin with some terms and definitions. So the term climate change was kind of coined in the 19th century, though in a slightly different context. Over time, of course, the context and everything changed as research progressed, etc. And then the term climate crisis was coined by and to kind of signal the fact that it's an emergency, though these terms, climate crisis, climate emergency, etc., didn't gain as much recognition or whatever until 2019, when The Guardian changed their editorial stylistic guide to use the terms like climate crisis and emergency more frequently to kind of make it more urgent and to reinforce the idea that it's an emergency, that it's important, that it's a disaster and not something to be treated lightly. Because there was research conducted where climate change was not said to have as much of an impact on people as, say, like climate crisis, etc. And why did I just randomly say that accent? Anyways, etc, whatever. Where was I? So climate change just had climate change too had more of an impact than global warming. There are some flaws with both terms. For instance, some people argue that the climate is constantly changing. That does not imply that it's a disaster when it actually is in this case. So is it accurate to call it climate change? Similarly, global warming, it's the rate at which the earth is warming, and the impact of that warming is not accurately conveyed through global warming. Global warming just implies that we are warming up, which doesn't accurately convey how much of a disaster that is. So the terms climate crisis, again, as I said, gained traction after the Guardian changed its editorial stylistic guide a lot of international news agencies did change their guides too. I do believe Hindustan Times did too as well. I'm not sure if any other Indian print media or media companies in general did that. And also Greta Thunberg tweeted in 2019 about, since we're talking about, since we kind of trying to analyze why people chose to change the way we communicate about climate change is interesting, because there are two aspects to it. I read one article which was quite mind-opening. My point being eye-opening. Eye-opening, I meant not mind-opening, but quite eye-opening into how environmental degradation is actually affecting linguistics, and languages are actually being lost and going extinct because of the climate crisis, which is a really interesting social aspect, and puts things into perspective of how the climate crisis can actually have massive sociocultural impacts, because communities are either literally being wiped out or losing their heritage, losing their land, losing their traditional or cultural practices, losing their language due to natural disasters, due to being displaced, due to due to having to become climate refugees, which is a whole nother issue altogether. And those were some interesting things to learn about. And also how language, another thing that we don't really consider as much when we're talking about climate justice or when we're advocating for climate justice, is language. I'm a predominantly English speaker because I grew up speaking English, and even though I do speak a lot of other languages, I do speak some of the national languages, some of the regional languages, I don't speak it as comfortably, and English has been my first language. So, and of course that is seen as a very elitist thing, or seen as something that is better than other languages, especially in India. There is that almost casteist, classist view of language, and that again means that restricts the access of climate education or climate resources or climate news to everyone. Because climate news is not often translated into regional languages or just other languages in general. And I tried to research how climate change or climate crisis or these terms evolved in regional languages. I even tried to do it in Hindi, but I'm not really, I do read Hindi, but not that much. Reading research papers in English is difficult enough for me. Though I might try asking a friend or someone to look into it. So if I do, I'll put up what I gather from that on the screen or in the description. Also, all of the links and everything will be in the description. There are some really, really cool articles. I highly, highly recommend that you check them out. And I did try to figure out how language is impacted in an Indian context. Though again, I couldn't really search up about regional languages, and this is very, very focused on English, which sucks, because there is so much more research that needs to be done that have to be done on regional languages and other languages in general. So yeah, and that brings me to an interesting project that I recently discovered, and it's really cool. Project EIM, that is an international organization, movement, project kind of thing that hopes to translate climate news, climate education, climate resources into more languages, into different mediums, into just a lot of different ways to communicate with people, because again, literacy rates in India aren't the best either, and there's just a lot of like inequity, social inequity in general affects the way people can access information and resources both, and that's why it's so important to view things intersectionally and look at climate justice through an intersectional lens, because otherwise, for instance, even this video right now is barely accessible to a tiny population because it's on the internet. Not everyone has access to the internet, not everyone speaks or understands English, not everyone can understand the terms that I'm using. I'm not even being very beginner friendly. I expect that the viewer knows something about climate change already, and that's how this is being inaccessible. Again, I haven't like typed out the captions, so whatever YouTube auto generates may not be accurate, so it won't be accessible to someone who's hard of hearing or deaf. It's just inaccessible in so many ways, and quite frankly, I'm not doing much to work on that right now in this video, though I am trying to like do things outside. And that brings me to another interesting thing, which let's see if I'll get into it, but probably later. Right, I'll get into my perspectives on this later, like my personal stuff later. But moving on to continuing the academic parts of it, is that I did check out Indian perspectives on this issue, and Indian print media in general has, like, there was this really cool article that went in depth into like analyzing which amalgamation of everything that I'm interested in, that's film studies and environmental science and sociology and just a bunch of aspects. It's just brilliant, and literature too. So moving on, anyways, so I researched a little bit about this particular, how literature affects our understanding of climate change. And before I get into the research paper that I'm talking about, I wanted to just complete some things about the definitions. So the term climate anxiety was originally coined as eco-anxiety by Albrecht, I do believe a philosopher. Anyways, it was originally coined to describe a chronic fear of environmental doom. And there are a bunch of other words like I can't even pronounce it, but there's eco-grief, there's other things that I can't pronounce. There's also eco-angst, which seems pretty appropriate for us cool young people who just have a lot of angsty hormones, and then just the climate crisis, so eco-angst it is. Yeah, moving on. And since we're talking about environmental doom, that leads us to climate apocalypse, which is something that came up through, not through like environmental science, but through eco-literature. And this is so freaking fascinating. It's basically books, media, film, etc. and literature in general, that eco-fiction as well, but I'll focus more on eco-fiction than eco-non-fiction, but eco in general, how literature portrays climate disasters and how we can get out of it is really freaking cool. And for some reason, I haven't read a single work of eco-literature yet. I've probably read like a few short stories, etc., but I haven't read a book yet, which is like, I am so shocked at myself. The books that I've kept behind, they're just like vaguely related. None of them are like proper eco-literature, though these are really freaking cool too. But like, my point being that I haven't read a work yet, and like I was just reading through like other eco-literature books, and like all of them are on my DVR now, and I have so many books to read. Anyways, back to eco-literature. So there was this very in-depth analysis research paper. Again, all of these things are linked below. Please feel free to read them in depth. They're really cool. There was this. It just went in depth into how there are categorized different ways of portraying climate disaster. One of them was like how societies and communities come together or are formed due to climate disasters. There is another method of seeing it where societies are destroyed because of climate disaster. In some cases there's hope, in some cases there's infinite doom. It's just really cool how different artists, writers, just people portray the climate crisis through words or art. Even eco art is really cool. But my point being, eco-critical art actually. There's also the term eco-criticism. Just a bunch of terms that are really cool, but my point, coming back. There's also just like a lot of the way that fiction basically enables people to understand the climate crisis better, because it has a more emotional connection. It also is a lot easier to understand than just facts, just science talk and science babble. So in that case, fiction just is a lot better. And there have been a lot of researches particularly into how fiction is more effective than non-fiction at times. I'm not going to get into the debate, but I do prefer fiction. FYI, I haven't been able to complete many non-fiction books, but my point being, right, eco-fiction is freaking cool. That's my point right there. And the research paper that I was super excited about was they analyzed eco-critical Indian Bollywood movies from an eco-critical lens. That was so cool, and I didn't realize it until like now that I haven't really watched many, but I have watched one which was actually really good, Kedarnath. And like this research paper went into a deep analysis of that. I hadn't watched the other movie that they were talking about in the research paper, but that's on my to be watched. There's just so many things I have to watch and read. Sorry. There's so much media and stories out in the world, and it sucks that I will never be able to finish all of them, but like it's also so cool that there's just so much in the world. Like, yeah, anyways, moving on. The movie was so cool. The movie analysis and also the movie, brilliant. And I think it's just so important that we get like an Indian perspective on all of this, because I am tired of seeing international news, because I'm not able to relate to it. And the climate crisis isn't only international, it's also local, and we can see it happening right here, but no one seems to be talking about it. And Mumbai is going to be underwater in a couple of years, so I think it's pretty freaking important. And I mean, even right now we have heat waves and floods and a bunch of cool stuff, and still no one seems to care enough. Anyways, that was my short rant. Right, moving on. And also, when it comes to literature, there's this really cool thing where people are able to portray the intersectionality of everything much better by including characters from intersectional backgrounds, which enables people to understand intersectionality much better. Like, for instance, just today in fact, I was giving like this seminar thing to my classmates in my class, and I'm not sure if people actually understood what intersectionality was, but I mean, even I understood intersectionality more so through reading literature than just being given the definition. And I think it's so important for people to understand that, understand how various layers of identity can influence our privileges, prejudices, our worldview, our experiences in life, in this society, and also in the climate crisis. And it's really, and like there was another research paper, though that was again based in the US, about how race, class, gender, etc. was able to be portrayed better through eco-fiction. And there's also eco-feminism, eco-feminist literature. It's just a really cool word. Like, I'm obsessed with literature. I'm just so excited. Anyways, just the social sciences, literature, environmental justice all put together to make me vibrate so much. It is, yeah, I'm just moving my hands way too much, but who cares. Moving on. I think that's pretty much all that I got from my research. It's not all, of course, there's a lot. And there was also one article that I read that I think was like kind of like the turning point for how I viewed climate justice. Before that, I viewed it from a very ecological lens, from a very environmental, sciencey lens. But after I read a little more about climate justice, I realized that it's just as much of a social issue as it is an environmental issue, and that helped me connect it more. It just understanding that we are going to face climate issues anyways, that not the apocalypse, it's on the end, but apocalypse-like issues are inevitable, that we are going to see climate disasters in the future inevitably, but we can do things to prevent how bad they get, or how bad they affect communities, bad they affect us as people, also animals, and just the environment in general. And we can reduce the impacts by bringing stronger social foundations, stronger societies, a little more tight-knitness, better judicial systems, better governmental systems, better international policies. There's just so many things that can be done. Like, every single positive action towards human rights, towards animal rights, towards anything is climate action, not just environmentally, things that would be perceived as solely environmental. Just a lot of things can come under climate action right now, because everything is climate justice. Because if you're fighting for social rights, if you're fighting for social justice, you are inevitably helping our future climate action and our future ability to tackle the climate crisis collectively as humanity. And that's freaking cool. And also another reason why I named this in such a weird way was because like it's really about how language has changed, and also how our perspectives about climate activism and climate advocacy have changed over time. We declared it, like first we just got to know what it was. We knew what global warming was. Then we realized it was a freaking emergency, that all our lives were in danger, that our futures were in danger. And then we denied it. We all do, and we still do. We deny the impacts of it, because otherwise we literally won't be able to survive. you'll just have to be numb at some point to things, because otherwise it's just our survival human brain instincts to not think about things too much in order for us to actually function. Yeah. Then that result, that suppressed emotions, kind of give way to climate anxiety, because we just don't know what to do and things suck, and it's terrifying. And over time that anxiety can be debilitating, and you don't know where to move from there, you don't know what to do further. But then if you're lucky, you're able to convert that climate anxiety, and not convert, I would say, because everyone is still climate anxious, but channel that climate anxiety into climate action and into helping out, into volunteering, which is what I'm trying to do as much as possible, into just doing things for our local communities, for our schools, for our housing societies, for just the places that we live in, to try and get things to be more sustainable, to try and live more sustainably, like myself. And I think a very important thing that I realized was that really helped with my climate anxiety is that I can't be perfect, and that's okay. That it's completely okay if I bought something in a plastic bag. I don't need to freak out so much about it if I just remember to not buy something in a plastic packet next time and to carry a cloth bag. If I just keep remembering these things and keep advocating about it, it's okay. It's okay if I just do that once. It's okay if I slip up. That's completely normal. And again, I don't have to be a perfect vegan. I don't need to be zero waste. It's okay if I slip up. It's okay if I'm just low waste. It's just about the fact that I'm consistently doing the sustainable thing, and it's just physically impossible, just impossible in general, like realistically impossible to be perfectly sustainable, because even the things we do, like there was this really cool article by, I think, Queer Brown Vegan, that was really cool, which like talked about how no one in the climate, like no climate advocate or climate activist can do a job that is truly sustainable, and everyone is going to have to face some criticism. Even right now, I'm sure this camera that I'm recording on is not produced environmentally. I'm sure this is unsustainable. I'm using freaking electricity, pretty sure that's unsustainable. I'm wearing clothes that are unsustainable. I am living unsustainably, but that's just what I can do. I'm also trying to raise awareness about it. Hopefully that creates some positive impact, and hopefully I'm still able to leave a lasting positive impact in the way I'm doing things, and that's really what matters in the end. And moving on to, like, I've already talked a bit about how action needs to turn into justice, how we can no longer, like, just the way the climate change is outdated and climate crisis is the more important new term, because it is an emergency and we need to act like it. Climate action too needs to become outdated and become climate justice, because it is about ensuring equitable resources, access, inclusion for all. Everyone collectively needs to be able to survive the whatever comes forth, and for that we need to ensure that we are, as social beings, socially responsible for everything that we do, and and that our policies are also socially responsible. And yep, and finally, apocalypse. The apocalypse is not coming. We are not heading off into a dark place, because there is always hope, and that's what aeons of eco-literature have been telling us that there is hope, that even right now there is hope, even 10 years from now there will be some hope, that we just gotta take it, that we just gotta act as soon as possible. And it's completely okay if your mind breaks down, if you're not able to process the climate crisis anymore. It's completely okay if you are not able to take climate action. Don't outright deny it, please don't, but it's okay if you're partaking in climate inaction, because it's understandable that it's a huge thing and it's difficult to deal with. But